The Mandalorian Chapter 22, Guns for Hire, was an interesting one, a noir-style detective story full of appearances from familiar faces, both Star Wars characters as well as real-world celebrities. It felt a little strange to me, kind of all over the place, but it definitely moved the main plot forward, so let's dive into it. We open up with Axe Woves, Koska Reeves, and several other Mandalorians working as mercenaries, just like Bo-Katan said they were. They track down a Quarren, who has an absolutely awesome captain's chair that can double as a water tank. I loved that. She and Damon Calamari Prince have run off together for the sake of their love, but the Mandalorians don't care about that and take him back to his home because their morals are currently set by whoever is paying them. This series has been exploring these themes since it began. Mandalorians have power. They've got their armor and their weapons and their gadgets, and they're known as the best warriors in the galaxy, so how will they use their power? To help the galaxy or conquer it? To help people come together or divide them? Ripping apart a loving couple at the start of the episode is a good contrast to the unification we see in the final scene. The Mandalorian mercenaries then head for a planet called Plazir 15, which has hired them for protection, and that's where Bo-Katan and Din find them. But in true Mandalorian fashion, they can't just head straight there. They've got to handle a favor first. A favor requested by the planet's leaders, played by Jack Black and Lizzo, which I can't decide if I enjoy or not. I like Jack Black, I like Lizzo, I laughed when I saw them on screen, but that's what the scene became about for me. It's just Jack Black and Lizzo being silly in Star Wars. And then later we get Christopher Lloyd, another character actor I love, but there were just a lot of real-world cameos in this episode that I thought were a little much. But to be fair, that has been a part of The Mandalorian since the very first episode, where I was like, oh look, it's Brian Posehn. Anyway, the Duchess and her lord need help with some rogue droids, but Lord Bombardier is a former Imperial, so there are a lot of restrictions about what kind of forces they can have in their city. All the Mandalorians they hired would be too much, but apparently the two of them would work just fine. I don't understand why they couldn't just get Axe Woves and Koska Reeves to help out, but whatever. So Din and Bo begin their investigation into whatever is messing with the droids' programming by visiting the Ugnaughts in the underbelly of the city. I enjoyed Din working diplomatically with all of them after his experiences with Kuiil. I think it shows good growth for him, and it was growth that was caused by Kuiil as well. In the second episode of the series, when Din had to negotiate with Jawas, he kept resorting to brute force and violence, but the Ugnaught taught him diplomacy. It's a lesson that seems to have stuck, which makes it feel stranger that he seems to have gone backwards on his feelings towards droids. Again, back in Season 1, he didn't trust any droids, not even the astromech driving a speeder or Peli's pit droids. IG-11 changed his perspective, and then he started to be more accepting of all droids. Now, I understand why seeing some battle droids, specifically B-2 battle droids, would be a different story. They killed his family. I totally get why he might want to kick a few of them. But later on, he's threatening the droid bartender and telling Bo-Katan droids can't be reasoned with. That part of his characterization seemed inconsistent with me. Like, I thought we moved past all this, Din. Anyway, they have a fun conversation with a B-1 battle droid, and it's always great to hear Matthew Wood's voice again. Din causes a B-2 to go rogue and run off, and there's a fun little chase through the city resulting in a dive through a restaurant window. That was great. And I like that their next lead is a spark pad, which I assume is the droid bar version of a matchbook. I did really enjoy the noir elements of this story. It was very Attack of the Clones. At the droid bar, they learn that there isn't any kind of droid uprising, and the rest of the machines are concerned about what's happening. We've seen the New Republic scrapping Imperial technology, and the droids of Plazir are from the Empire and the Clone Wars. They have been given a second chance at life and purpose, and they fear the droid incidents across the city will ruin that. Their next lead comes in the form of basically a contaminated droid drink that can patch programming. At the droid morgue, which I thought was low-key kind of great, they're able to study the contaminations and trace it back to Christopher Lloyd's character, the city's head of security. I like that Bombardier is set up as the suspicious character at the start of the episode. He's a former Imperial and part of the amnesty program, and Elia Kane has done a good job at making the audience give those characters the side eye, but Commissioner Helgate didn't like the idea of an ex-Imperial taking such a position of power at the side of his Duchess. He didn't think Bombardier could change, and he didn't want to give him a second chance. So he jeopardized the second chance of all the droids in the city instead, hoping to frame the man. I do think this whole investigation and storyline thematically fits with even more questions The Mandalorian has been asking since the start. Kuiil talked about how droids and children are simply reflections of those that program or raise them. Early on, we see Din get a fresh set of Beskar armor, symbolizing a clean slate for him as he starts a new life with Grogu? Can people overcome their past to claim a second chance to be better than they were? Star Wars is obviously very big on redemption, but Commissioner Hellgate represents the kind of person who might stand in the way of redemption, because they decide for themselves who is or isn't worthy. The thing is, we have no idea what Bombardier did as an Imperial, so I don't really know how to feel about him. I guess the Duchess seems like a good person, like if the audience trusts her and she trusts him, then he must be okay, but I don't know, that doesn't quite work for me. I suppose the New Republic wouldn't have granted Bombardier amnesty if he were a Grand Moff or something. I feel like I have too many questions about these brand new characters to be fully on board with the message. Maybe Commissioner Hellgate had some pretty good reasons for doing what he did, but if that were the case, his methods were harmful to every droid in the city, so I will at least condemn him for that. The Duchess knights Grogu before Din and Bo-Katan leave to meet with the Mandalorians, which was very funny and cute and genuinely made Molly cry happy tears. And then the final scene of the episode was by far my favorite. Bo needs to reassert her dominance by challenging Axe Woves to a duel, which was fantastic. Very cool choreography with the jetpacks and the whipcords and all the gadgets. She wins, of course, and I loved her defense of Din when Axe calls him a zealot without a drop of Mandalorian blood. I think that lines up very well with some questions that were raised about Jango Fett in the Clone Wars when Prime Minister Almec claimed he wasn't Mandalorian either. There are some who have a negative opinion on foundlings, new Mandalorians who don't come from a long dynasty like House Kryze or Vizsla or Rin. Axe claiming Din isn't Mandalorian because of his blood is no different from Din claiming Axe isn't Mandalorian because he doesn't keep his helmet on. It's silly. There are all these arbitrary rules, and every Mandalorian seemingly picks and chooses which ones they want to follow. But Bo-Katan is starting to see beyond all of that. She doesn't want to divide Mandalore any longer. She wants every walk of life united, no matter what rules they all think are important. Speaking of rules, let's talk about the Darksaber. Din hands it over to Bo-Katan in front of everyone, claiming that she defeated an enemy that defeated him, which is true, and the other Mandalorians just kind of accept that with little fanfare. I am glad to see her with the Darksaber again. I loved that moment in Chapter 18 where she picked it up and kicked butt with it. Personally, I don't mind that being how she wins it in combat or whatever, but I'm surprised the Mandalorians are going along with it. Like, they're all so flippant with their rules, happily accepting loopholes, but they don't really seem happy about it either. The past 2 episodes have had these moments centered around Bo-Katan that fell flat for me. I have wanted her to remove her helmet since she started keeping it on, but I didn't want it to be on the armorer's terms. I think it's cool that she has the Darksaber back, but I thought it would be presented as a bigger moment. The final scene felt like a less impressive version of what we saw in Star Wars Rebels, where someone else gave her the Darksaber. That was the more fist-pumping, meaningful scene in my opinion. I don't know, this season has been doing things that on paper sound good, but in execution I'm not really digging. I should say I think that's more down to the writing and story beats. I thought the direction of this episode was good. It looked vibrant and felt energetic, but Season 3 as a whole feels unfocused when compared to the first or second. Also, this episode's kind of goofy story just isn't my favorite flavor of Star Wars. I certainly don't mind it existing. I've seen a lot of love for it online already. It's just not for me so much. I think I would have liked it more if it were earlier in the season, but oh well. Historically, the last 2 episodes of every season have been absolutely awesome, so my fingers are crossed for next week. Let me know what you thought of Guns for Hire in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and buckle up for Star Wars Celebration. It starts in just 2 days, and Molly and I will be there covering everything we can. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.